The third thing, or second thing we've done is that we've established a judicial selection commission. The legislature did that to provide for a manner to objectively recruit, evaluate, and forward names of qualified candidates to the governor to fill vacancies. We have used that since Governor Quee. We have, that has also been used in the appellate process. I went through the judicial selection process before I was appointed to the Court of Appeals and to the Supreme Court. The process has worked very well, and it has worked very well for minorities. Minorities do better statistically in this type of judicial selection system than if you had a pure election system. The third thing we did was the Minnesota Supreme Court established standards of conduct in judicial elections, and we had rules that judges couldn't announce their position on a hot-button political issue. U.S. Supreme Court in Republican Party versus White struck down those limitations, saying they violated free speech. That's a problem in this perspective. What's happened is that since that decision, judicial election campaigns that have occurred outside of Minnesota have been partisan, have been political. You don't have to go very far to see the problems. The most expensive contest for a judicial election in American history so far took place in 2004 in Illinois, where two candidates for a Supreme Court position raised $9.3 million. So they spent $9.3 million. God, Greg, you're going to have to write a lot of money if I have that kind of a campaign. Wisconsin has just endured a battle where, for their Supreme Court, there was $6.6 million that was spent. And the TV ads that were run were not ads. This person is very qualified because of this or that experience. The ads have been, this judge has released sexual pedophiles and has done all these evil things that much of which was not true but was sensational. So why do I bring that up? It's important to all of us that we have a judiciary that is not partisan, that's free of political influence, that remains free and impartial. That's important to all of us. As an aside, let me tell you why this is important by way of an example. There was a period of time in private practice where I went to Texas. I went there 40 times over a 3-year period representing the state of Minnesota on an insurance company's liquidation. My job was to go to states across the country, and including Texas, and draw down a letter of credit, take their money, the trucking companies, $2 million, bring it to Minnesota and spread it out. So Texas didn't like that, as did any other state that we were pursuing. Well, I was appearing to draw down a letter of credit in a Texas court, and I started arguing, and all of a sudden the judge said, "Mr. Dietzen, you ain't nothing but a damned Yankee." Now, you start thinking, I'm going to be hometowned. This is going to be decided by something other than the merits of this case. And so you get a little nervous. And so I think for a bit, and I noticed the court reporter is not transcribing anymore. And so I hit it head on and I say, "Your Honor, where I come from, we call ourselves Midwestern gentlemen. What I'd like to know, however, is are there any damned Confederate judges down here?" And he looked at me and he rocked back in his chair and he says, "Mr. Dietzen, you and I are going to get along just fine." I won that motion. I grabbed my money and I got the heck out of Dallas. And to this day, I do not know whether he was pulling my leg or whether he was serious. Because, see, down in Texas, they give campaign contributions when they're in the courtroom. I mean, there are no limitations, and it's just frightening. Minnesota should not go the way of Texas and these other states where partisan politics gets in the way of a free or a fair and impartial judiciary. If you are a business person and you're going to court in front of a judge, the most important question that you should ask yourself is this: when my case comes to trial, what kind of judge do I want? One who will decide the case based on the facts and the law, or one who is beholding, to a political party or a special interest group? I suggest the answer is obvious. Many say the judicial election process needs reform. There's many possible options to consider: the federal appointment for life model, the retention election system in which judges appear on the ballot without an opponent and voters decide whether to retain that judge or not, or to modify Minnesota's existing system to have a blue ribbon commission to review the performance of the sitting judge and the qualifications of the judge and opponent. Third option is to maintain the current system. I don't take a position on which way Minnesota ought to go. That's up to the voters, that's up to the legislature to decide. I would point out, I ran for election in 2006 at the Court of Appeals, and I drew two conclusions from that. One is that it ought not to be the case that judicial candidates get political party endorsements. I think keeping that out of the process is very important that we avoid if we can. The second thing is what I call voter education. Most voters don't know about judges, and we need to do something about that. And let me give you a statistic. When I traveled around the country, anecdotally, people said, well, I'm glad you came because now I can put a face to a judge. I hate having to vote in Hennepin County 2 pages of judicial candidates and not knowing who that person is. Statistics bear this out. I did a study a few years ago, and in statewide elections, of those who actually cast their vote in an election, like in this last election, only 73 to 80% of those votes cast actually vote for the judicial candidates. So there's a drop-off of the people that vote. Only 73 to 80% actually vote for the judicial candidates. So that tells me that people are not voting because they don't have information. We need to figure out a way to correct that. I think I've gone over just a few minutes. I apologize for that. I urge you to support the judiciary with respect to it being a core function, and that our budget just cannot be cut further without impairing our constitutional mandate. And secondly, that you express your views on this issue of judicial elections. I think that it's very important that the business community add some balance, a balanced perspective to this issue, so that we can do something about it before we have a train wreck and have some good judge get knocked off because a lot of money, millions of dollars, are spent by a special interest group to run against that person. With that, thank you very much, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.